Pines That Watched Part 2? In my head, for some insane reason, I felt like they were watching me as they danced sleepily. In the same way a kid peeks out from barely open crescent eyes to fool their parents, but in a patently obvious way that might make the parents aware the kid was awake. Almost like an inside joke. I suppose. They were watching me. They were pretending to not be alive, to simply be trees in the only way a tree can be. But they knew I was watching, and that's why they danced the way they did when it was only me awake at 10 p.m., a time I should have been long asleep by. In my perception, they could only know I was awake if they saw me open the blinders. So I'd push my iris as closely as possible to the tiny little gap where the blinder string pushed through, so that there was no perceivable way for them to know I was watching them back. But perception is in itself a curse of sorts. All you have to do is be aware of something for it to be in your radius of knowledge. And in that sense, it becomes aware of you in return. It only went downhill after my blinders became damaged from my repeated and more frantically curious observations, due to my bending them to look out the window, either while watching my dad come home from work or the former nighttime ritual. One blinder eventually bent far enough it snapped off. So now my window had, in itself, a doorway for the unsettling trees to progress into my room and my mind. And once this came to pass, more and more strange things began to occur both inside the house and around the property. One event involved my study of the grass leading up the hill where the trash cans lay. I noticed swirling patterns that prior had not been there, a sort of snaking motion that led away from the forest below. It was so obvious a change it was impossible not to notice, but still, I had no way to confirm since I had no way to compare the prior texture. No evidence, no proof. The trees continued their motions even on spring days where the world desired to stand still with eyes closed to the sun. A certain dampness began to settle into the foundations of my home, another small thing to overlook as a child, due to my parents motioning to not concern myself. But nights spent listening through the walls informed me that the house's stability was becoming an issue. The ground beneath was apparently built on less than stable material when we'd first moved in, and now years later, we were beginning to see a very gradual but inevitable shift towards the hillside. We would have to move out within a year or two. Another night, something awful clawed its way out of my imagination. Our house was small, more of a tube with 3 sections. The living room where the entrance lay, a kitchen with some space for the table, a hallway with stairs leading to the basement, and then my room at the very end. My bed was positioned in such a way that I could basically look all the way down to the living room, oftentimes with the door open for some bizarre reason I'll never understand. Ambient lighting from outside was minimal in the area we lived in, so as a result, the living room was often pitch black past the portal, and I would stare into this area sometimes, remembering what my mom told me about staring at something too long without thinking, idle eyes, and all that.